So here, when for a person, to approaching this presentation of emptiness and starting to learn about it, when we're first learning about it, and we come to hear of these presentations of things lacking any form of true existence or lacking any existence from their own side. So these are things that are presented in the system. But in order to get a really good understanding for ourselves, sort of habituate ourselves to the understanding of them and sort of join everything together, it's very important that we also are able to look through the perspective of the two truths, because if we don't do this, there's a great danger that we'll kind of over-refute and refute everything. And also in terms of thinking about what kind of mind is it that engages with the different truths, and particularly what kind of mind is it that engages with the conventional world, the things which are sort of nominally existent, the conventional world, then we also need to have a very good understanding of this. Otherwise, there's this great danger of refuting too much. So sorry, in the verse 23 of chapter 6, it says, all entities bear dual natures, so as obtained by correct or false views of them, what is seen by perfect vision is the ultimate truth, and what is seen by false vision is the conventional truth it is taught.
아니 군주베트 오지다 혼담배 오니 외국이 아니 지기 오 오라리아 누구 손으로들이야 오 찍어도 매번 손으로 세제 아니 딱 행기 하고에 있다도 담담된 바통 아니 아주 심진적으로 통도 군주된 바통 되서 이렇게 좀 말했어 예벌도 지금 파괴 쓰고 있는데 알아서 지금 타면백에 다 지금 다 내용으로 돼서 땅 알아서 타면백이 아니 다들 뭐니 예벌도 대고요 시지기 땡도
And so here in relation to this verse 23 of the sixth chapter, where it's discussing the two different kind of entities, or the two different natures of phenomena. What it does in the text is take as the basis of in the explanation. It takes as a basis for the as a basic, the basic phenomena as a sprout. And then it or a shoot, sometimes called translated as a shoot, and then it looks to present the two different entities on the basis of that, the ultimate sort of nature or entity and the ultimate and the conventional entity. So it presents these two forms of entity in relation to one phenomenon, but there's a tendency for us to think of it there as only being one. There can be people who sort of only present one entity, that which is seen by the sort of the Aryas, by the people who have attained the higher parts of the Bodhisattva state. But actually, there are two entities, which are there are two entities, that of the conventional and that of the ultimate.
재생아 이게 공주들이 완전히 같이 배줄 땅이라고요. 예. 이거 군수 비지고 많이 봐. 배는 담담된 거 때는 법적 비주고라. 아니 최 담제 명신 유튜브 뭐 명신이 뭐 주비 뭐세 계제 직시 아니 되네 되레 타대비 최 시제 않고 뭐 직다 타대바 또바 타대바세 계제디 군수비 계제 시그레 담담의 계제를 shechu. Tendam dabe wangdo chene seyade geje kakare mato, ena shi chigi tingdu dilang owa chigda, dilang owa tate se geje ting nyebardo sheko. Yes.
So in the first subjects that you study when entering the monastery, these texts of collected topics, in there's an entire topic discussing whether comparing phenomena to two phenomena and identifying whether those two phenomena are of one entity or if they are a different or separate entity. And so there's no so if you have two existent phenomena, they either have to be of one entity with each other or they have to be of separate entity with each other, and there's no other phenomena, there's no other possibility for these. And as we sort of habituate ourselves to this, then this is at the beginning of the studies, but then later this topic is sort of becomes related to to the two entities of the conventional entity and the ultimate entity, and for once we determine a sort of ultimate entity of something that some thinking it has no intrinsic, an entity which has no intrinsic existence, then we can compare whether other phenomena are of one entity with it or separate entities with it.
당년이야 더워요만 진 아니 전담된 바 땡 화비 까비야 아니 쳐버지 뭐니 유튜브 뉴스면 민도 그냥 별로데 좀 아니 세면 그 소지란 거야 아니 들려야 지 공지도 잘하고 우리 아니 치 알아나베 어느 군주비 취 단역이 자와셔버다 함지 알로 추비공에 나버려 있어요 더워 용해도 그랬으나 아니 이 통신기 전담 통행기 로당 군주 통행기 로를 예화만 집에게 괜찮더다 아니 유리야 군주 당 전담시 이 용초비여버디 아주 생기 다치기 아주 마선에 저지dim에도 내용을 대체상가 아니 제가 되긴 대화 되나거든 전담 통행기로 이 시기 처벌기 아니 유기 통화 유기 수요 통과된 이 시기 처벌기 통과 이 시스도 람로 람데 카르레스 되면 동리 통일 람티기 동리 통일이 람티 있어 그것도 송거다
And uh, so and here that uh, uh, so we have these two natures, the conventional and the ultimate nature or entity, and these are these two are different. Even in the case of a single entity like a sprout, you have these two, and they so not just only one entity, but there's also the from the different points of view of ordinary persons or Aryas. There is, these two entities. So in Chandrakirti's self-commentary to this verse, it talks about the ultimate, the mind, the kind of mind which sees the ultimate nature of it. And in this case, it mentions the word yeshi in Tibetan, which would be a sort of exalted wisdom and of an Arya being, or and that mind seeing the ultimate nature. And then it also so we have the ultimate mind. So there are two different ways of having to look at this. There is the we talk about these two in terms of the ultimate and the conventional in terms of the object. We will also talk about them in terms of the mind. So the mind which is seeing in an ultimate way is the mind that sees the empty nature or the ultimate nature, and the mind which sees the mind conventionally seeing mind is the mind which is the mind which which has which all the kind of conventional phenomena of the world appear to us, which is only a mistaken mind. So we have to divide these up into the ultimate, the mind seeing ultimate.
English is coming. Yeah.
And then just open the video. Yeah. Yeah.
어디 내가 전부터 지금도 하는 세준다. 제가 전담된 발레디 대바통에 또 됐어요 말에. 공주 전발에 공주 전배가 지기 최통도 전바통에 또 어디 지는 거 지금 뒤단대 가지고 계제 뒤단대 리그.
Donc, il s'agit d'un...
So I'll just I'll just repeat the section. I think I think it dropped out. I'm not sure when. So Chandrakirti in his auto commentary to the hang on. Yeah, it's working. So Chandrakirti in his sixth chapter commentary, his self commentary, auto commentary to the sixth chapter of this particular verse talks about, also discusses not just the different forms of objects, so the ultimate object of ultimate entity and object of conventional entity. But he also talks about the minds, the different ways of seeing this through the different forms of mind, such as the Arya's kind of exalted wisdom or gnosis, which is seeing the ultimate nature of things, and then also sort of the way of ordinary beings seeing. So through having determined the ultimate nature of having determined the ultimate nature of things, and we habituate ourselves to that, but still you have the conventional phenomena appearing to us, and but then sort of understanding those two appear to be seen. That's a better way to say, only through mistaken mind. So, and so we also have to be careful not to mix up these two presentations of the ultimate and conventional in terms of the entity or object, but also the ultimate and conventional in terms of the mind, and ultimately seeing mind and the conventionally seeing mind, and understanding that the Arya, these Arya exalted wisdoms are sort of the paths to seeing emptiness. And the ordinary sort of conventional minds of seeing the conventional phenomena, but be careful not to mix up the subject and object in relation to those two categories.
Ça va être répété.
And so here, in terms of we're talking about in terms of so then seeing conventional and ultimate truths, as in terms of the actual, it's talking about the actual truth, seeing the truth, the conventional truth, and seeing the ultimate truth. And we can ask, we don't really, we would think perhaps that we don't really need to raise a doubt about whether we see the ultimate truth right now, as we're just starting to engage with these topics, but it might be possible that the doubt comes to us well, then do I actually see conventional truth? Am I able to engage with or see conventional truth? And here, one very important point is that what we're doing, what we see. So, for instance, when we see pots or mountains or trees, these kind of things, these are examples or exemplars of what is called conventional truth. All of the objects of the five senses, are all sort of what we talk about as examples of conventional truth. But actually, it's not. We don't actually see a conventional truth itself. We don't engage with it, have a feeling for it, because we see these sort of examples of things, but we're not actually seeing the conventional truth because, as I mentioned before, so in order to see the conventional truth, we first of all, before that, we have to have already seen clearly the ultimate truth. As I mentioned before in an example, if we take a particular phenomena, in order to, or any phenomenon, if we were to try to understand that phenomena was sort of false or fake in some way, then first of all we'd have to understand what the truth is, and then by understanding the truth, we could then ascertain that something was false. So we have to go through that sequence, first of all understanding the ultimate truth, and then to understand the conventional truth. But there are certain people who can't accept this, but that's because they're confused about the way in which we the sequence that is essential in order to understand both the truths. And so, in order to, and taking something as a phenomenon as a basis, in order to know that thing to be a conventional truth, we have to do that, we have to rely on the view of the middle way. We have to hear the view of the middle way, think about it, to study it and train in it, and in order to be able to understand something to be a conventional truth. So this is very clearly what Chandrakirti is saying here.
마란주 군주 통단의 간테스 통구요래 군주 덴바 딱그 군주 세 지금 군주 덴바 스탑잖아 군주 덴바 간테스 통토래 슬라베이나 난 제장아 디 줌바 타기 다니엘라나시 줌바 아 차베나로를 던지 송도와 제장아 줌바 통왜 똑레스 줌바 통왜 똑 텔레 통해 지게스 줌바 통에 또 텔레 통당의 컨디지를 슬라나 답배지 채워지 배나 아니 주마켄 주마켄기 아니 지게 지가서 주베된체 아니 랑보철로 소도 주요원들 전배 아니 대통령들이야 오디언스들이 니용 쇼레스 오디언스 직디 가르 통구를 슬라나 top de kwang la Rimpoche ji du slebe sonro ba ji dang Rimpoche tsini ba ji tong de ni sonro ji ma do ji ge ku tu ba de ni ko tong de ba sonro ba yin ba am sam de Rimpoche kan le shen ji yong me de ge tu ba sonro ma tong de zhen di tong ya de ka le sen tu bi shu ge tong de ji re ma do ta di tu bi wang ge to ba re ma do de ba ma re ji yu ngo bi ni ju le de ba ji 하여는 찌개 통당 카레 통고열에서도 니 규모경기 어시스턴트 선로버치 거기 로버체딩이 선로지나 거기 니 마다와르 실랑보치 첨부 주요데 그도 이네 거기 제당 나나데 저기 똑기 니베 랑보치지 선 통도 전배 거기 가도 이네 다디 랑보치데 그도 통야다 나이 민밀로 영어스도 통되니 지레도데 이나야 디 제당알 때는 루셔죠 랑보치지 레벨 랑보치 친이보다 말에 냠베 통당지 니용 처베 나네 니버 통당데 아니 줌부 데이터다 디나시 줌부 통에 톱레 통당데 구조된베 통당드레스 만주 통당데 가르에서나 오렌스 당부디 다 당분에 뒤쪽에 되면 마통하지 아니 그 주변 차 아니 랑보치 주주도 용도 전배 다 랑보치 용 아니 다용 아니 배망부 여디 통도 전배 다들 뭐는 랑보치 친이버 통대 지금 용도 전배 안줘 가르 통과해서 군주도 배 친시지 통대라마도 군주 덴바 통요 말레스 군주 덴바 통예데 다단다 유마킹기 어시스턴트 차죠 여자상가 준바 통에 더블 통당치레스 군주 덴바 세야디 어디 고아디 내지낸 거고 있어요.
And so here, to see, so why is it said that, in order to see things to be conventional truth or to be conventional, why is it that we have to rely on this view of the middle way? Why do we have to have that in order to see things to be a convention? And in the text, it says, in order to see something as a convention, you need to see them through the kind of influence of, almost like the influence of understanding them to be false. To see through them, to see them to be through the power of that understanding, then you can understand things to be conventionally true or conventional. And actually, it's through the power of seeing them to be false that you can explain them to be conventional. And an example that is present in the text is that of a magician who by various sort of means, sometimes in the text it sort of talks about using various in the text it says pebbles and sticks, but using some materials and then some kind of mantra to in some way create an emanation. In the text it talks about creating a sort of magical show of kind of elephants. Now, within the audience, we can divide the audience generally into two categories. One category is the people who are taken in by the whole thing and really see what they see is not as an emanation, but they see what they think are real elephants or people riding real elephants or real elephants performing. And they are that's through the power, that is based on the influence of their mistaken sort of mind. But the second form of audience is those that, for instance, it could be the magician's assistant who has seen this sort of magical tricks and these magical emanations many times before as he's the assistant. And he knows that these are created on the basis of the sort of mantras and other sort of materials. And, and through that, the people see the elephant, but he doesn't. He still sees the elephant, but he doesn't get taken in by it, so he understands that it's not a real elephant. And so in this case, through the influence of being able to see it to be fake or to be false, to see it to be unreal in that way, then he's able to talk about it as being an illusion or is fake. And so, but for us, we're the first category. We're totally drawn in by everything. We see them really as, that we would see the show as being real elephants or horses. And so we are just seeing what we call an exemplar of the conventional truth, but we're not actually seeing things or understanding things to be conventional or to be conventional truth. So the second way is by seeing things to be false, to seem false. We can talk about them as being conventional. Yeah.
I will say this in English. One time I visited my teacher, and then we were talking about many
manifestations and emanations, yeah.
Emanation, and also if not a magic, some like you pull out a pigeon out from nowhere. Magic.
Say that again.
So my teacher said, well, if from nowhere I put a momo in front of you. It's been a long time. So, kind of like this. So then we would all say, wow, what a miracle, magic. But if I somehow made onion and then this miced up meat, or this is vegetarian, so a vegetable. So I do the magic, I make it, and then I start in front of you making everything and put it in front of you. We will never say this is a magic. It is same magic. One is not like it immediately. It is prepared everything through magic, and then in front of you, we will never say it's a magic. Similarly, on this conventional level truth, when we see all this, like, wow. But then through investigation, through the existence of this inherent existence of that, but then slowly fades away, then it starts functioning. We might also difficult to accept these things can still function. So what we can put this together that the din lava machine. Chezanga Zumba tong toble. Zumba tong toble sidu tembe. Tangi yumakingi language de niel du sabe na. Di matong che. Matong digi chisu kugi language de ngaju dun lu suni yong she du tembe ngaju langbo de deba song de che. Ta ngaju dun la language de any be zedang la de put up che any be dun la yak chibu suni yong du tembe. 어디에 준바레스 남상 시트베지 이해를 니가로 지거라 봐 대나야 만줄라 디기 잡로기 똥바디 디기 좀 가서 그래 랑보지 신입이기 똥아디 시에만 신기 계절도 와 랑보지 신입이기 똥아디 단다 유마킹 주베 랑보 정보치 신입이기 똥아디 시에나 아니 니야로 뚜베 이네레 칼리 진에 뚜베 이네라 참말로 어디 뚜바레 니 줌바레 어디 그 미추리 세 기저디 먼저 셰토가 어디나 신시제 다 디니니도 존재가 있어요.
So that was a similar an example that my teacher was giving in terms of the Momo and in terms of seeing the power of seeing things to be false, to see it to be false or fake. Then in terms of whether if we had if we were to if this magician were to create this sort of magical illusion of an elephant, and let's say, for instance, we were to not see him doing that process, and then that magical illusion sort of appeared in front of us, and then we would just see at that time we would just see that magical illusion as a real elephant. It would appear to us to be a real elephant. But if he was to come in front of us, and if he were to come in front of us and start going through his whole process of using mantras and his various materials in order to create the illusion, we would we would if we were able to see through the illusion, that we would understand that that illusion was empty of being a real elephant. If we were able to see behind the trick, then we would understand that the elephant, the manifested magical show of the elephant was actually empty of a real elephant. So, and then if we were able to understand that the magical illusion, the illusory created elephant were empty of being a real elephant, then we would be able to, understand that that it was false, but only through that way. So it could be possible that we could still be drawn in by the illusion, even if he did it like he does in a magical show and drawn in for it. But if we were able to see behind it, then the trick would be to see that it was empty of being a real elephant, and therefore we could understand it to be false. So this is in relation to that phrase which says through the power of seeing something to be false.
On a l'impression spontanément, forcément, sur le pas initial, que les chevaux, les éléphants, etc., sont vrais. Mais si nous avions l'habitude de voir comment ça fonctionne, comment est-ce que le processus a été effectué, quel est le truc qu'il y a derrière, on peut dire, bah non, c'est faux. Et donc, c'est là où finalement, on peut se départir de cette perception des choses, comme si elle est faite de manière
So there was one bit that I missed at the beginning when we were talking about the two natures, but it was talking about the nature of terms of conventional. So in the first in this verse 623, where it talks about there's nature in terms of conventional truth and the nature in terms of ultimate truth. Oh, sorry.
다양 더버지 갈리 그랬어도 로 민도 니가 파주 누구를 누구 말했어. 된담로 주베 로당 타니를 주베 로세 니용도 전배 된담로 주베 로 되게 타니 주베 로 되게 추네. 타니를 주베 로 되게 된담로 추네 용이야. 되게 아니 년가 요 말을 배세 삼로지 레임 요래요. 대인도 전배 텔레야다 랜드리아 네 미네랄이 진지 미고이 러브리메 실라네 민지더 대신 팀에 이시에 방별을 팀에로 내봐요 많이 저장하다 빼지게 맞지 빼디 러브리 단 덴베 러브리스는 또 그런 규연하면 냐나 등에라 러브리 대시리 자나마도야 러브리디 시겨버 지난주 러브리 여러봐 어니알 디버도 지글라다 안테네 빼고 좋거든
And so then in connection with this idea that the conventional and the ultimate, the presentation of the conventional and ultimate entities or natures of things being seen by two different kinds of mind, then in that presentation, the question may arise to us, does do those two different kinds of mind then not are they not in contradiction to each other? Do they not philosophically harm each other? Do they not? Is there not a danger that either the conventionally analyzing mind would harm the ultimate nature, or the ultimately analyzing mind harm the conventional nature? So, in answer to this, Chandrakirti in verse 29 of chapter 6 says, through the force of an eye disease. So I'm just checking whether all of you understand this kind of the eye disease is being talked about here. One perceives false things such as floating hairs and so on. Those with clear vision see what is actually so, understand suchness to be like this as well. So this is the verse that Chandrakirti says in answer to that question.
민나로 라면다 통용했지. 라바도 티벳 슈충부 나데니 지 시기도 남샤균도 단다다 가리 미미신. 라 가지 미디기 나자디 나온도 잠베 수수용고네마 따스 사회매라 소바들다. 아니 라바도 따지 걸 따여는 따 마산에 사와 통도 잠베 야 도바먹고 제를 주요 봐. 다 걸 따큐네 메네 야고 지 따사원도 잠베 고 년걸 따메데 마따 사와 통해야 돼. 용도 잠베 안 딘지기 좀바지 통용 위어르데 이나양 딘지기 사디기 아니 트라시 딘기 러브리기 투이바도 스타시 통용야데 아니 코란레야 통당지레 마도지기 아니 추니 오송도 통되니 덴바 오송도 통되니 딱 빼디키온도 잠베 미니버지 용치 미니버디기 콜라타 용도 잠베 아니 그 녀든지 녀기 콜라타 요 말데 타 사버 통고도 녀 콜라타도 스케줄이 되는 그 게임쇼치 추랑 콜라타 매바 아니 타 사버데 추랑기 통당지레마도 디 매바디 녀 통고도스 다 디나로래야 덴바 통당니치 덴바 당부도 가르 통고였으나 코란 걸 따면이 단도 다시 통도 준비 심 소지나 다시게 나와지도 스마트 마사에 나와도 통대지 여래데 이게 걸 따매데 당동야 통대게 나와지도 손도 준비 콜레에 디용고요 말 가서래 다시 대코나니 통고요 말 다시 매베 대코나니 통고요 말 다시 매베 대코나니 통년도 운에도 수르스나 미니버들이 차디고 니가 로게 대권한이 통한다는데 치마디기 미니버디기 대권한이 문을 통말 이내에 다시를 여디니디 그 나라 담해데 다다 통데데 나란로도 투데 요래데 양양한테네 직통 것이도 세들점베 통담면도 니중도 디인도점베 통담면도 니디기 다시 통해야기 미디기 통해야디 아니 뭐야 다시게 대권한이 학도버 통역이 미니버디기 대권한이 준비 시발을 그렇게 해요 말이스 저장 디너신 군주부고 통계를 넣어되기 전담을 내고 해요 말에 전담로 통역을 넣어되기 군주를 내고 해요 말에 에스페도 실종자래.
And so in the verse, what is being discussed is in terms of how the force of this eye disease, then a person perceives to have false things within their field of vision, particularly as is used in this case, an appearance of floating hairs floating down, and here in terms of the person who has this disease, seeing the floating hairs. Now, of course, there'd be people who would have this disease to cause them to see these floating hairs, and some people who have that disease would have hair, would have a head of hair, and some of them maybe not. Now, so of course, the person who had a head of hair maybe sort of maybe thinking it's their actual real hair falling down, but then the person who doesn't have any hair at all, was sort of bald, would then think of this as completely new hairs falling down and wonder, obviously wonder what was going on. And so here, but if so they're seeing the under the condition of having that disease, this person sees the hairs like this. But then if a second person were to come along who is not afflicted with this disease, someone who could see the suchness of the truth of the fact that there are no actual hairs there, so that they would see that there were no actual hairs, then that person could say to the other person that you're kind of seeing things. You're not. It's not. There's either no new hair on your head. You haven't grown new hair on your head, and it's you're kind of mistaken in the way you're seeing things. But that can only be sort of verified by the second person who has seen the truth of that and is not afflicted by the disease. So here we have two. You have two ways of sort of for the person who has the disease and sees the hairs, these floating hairs coming down. For that person, in a sense, they see there's a kind of they see the sort of they have the appearance of those hairs. They may have no hair, but they have the appearance of these hairs floating down, and they don't see the reality of the fact that there are actually no floating hairs at all. But they have a kind of there is a kind of truth to their appearance in the fact that they are experiencing that they're having that experience of those the appearance of those hairs. Whereas for the second person, they're seeing the reality of the lack of hairs, but these two are not. So one is a mistaken form, and one is a sort of veridical kind of mind, a mind seeing the truth. But actually, for the person who has the appearance of hairs, and the person is they're not these two different experiences are not in contradiction. And so in the same way we say that the mind, a conventionally sort of analyzing mind, or a conventional mind doesn't negate a sort of or harm an ultimate mind, and an ultimate sort of analyzing mind doesn't negate something conventionally operating conventionally.
단도 특지 오마되게 W2 뜻이라서 원어로 관심남다 버티니다니 강도 믹 다베 통대 되는 대신 드시 기세 되게 타니를 주베 로 되게 그뒤에 된담된 법 투에 요 말했어. 제가 타니 주베 로 되게 된담을 뉴게 말해 타니를 주베 로 되게 된담거나 셰도 말했어. 제가 된담을 주베 로스니 디 컨티지 고요레 세도타 단기 빼디 셰바나신 아니 트라시기 대코나니 다타시기 대코나니의 수통고래 세도점베 아니 트라시기 지기 롤로데스 추밤 아니 도지가 롤리아 가서래 다코랑 베나 단데디 세 토나들이 베나 ngariong gol ta me de tando yang ta je thong de lo chube ong ge de re do de ina yang de de thong de do a su je tando ko le zimba ji ge yong gu yo de do ji dong de zu thong cha na yang korang ge ngwe ne me ba de zu thong cha na yang dang dong yang ko de zu chube shi ji la de yo ba nga ra zo bo dong ni le ga zo gom ne yang dang dong yang ji ge zimba ji se shi ji la de do a on di 때때 채토비 계제들이 아주 제바 도시 퇴섬 제딩이데 데리지가 될야 닌지기 안에 대권한이 통단대 대권한이 통단 조요 됐어 민족어디 가르에서나 다시기 대권한이 오늘 통일의 수 통고 열었어요 더 민니버디 통고를 했어요 답합니다 합의 통단들이 합의 통단데 벤체당 모습도 통봤어 된담대 모습도 통 제자 신의 박람 제야 수수기우나 파바세게 개발한 로사기 시디 가와nen 로레 세두점베 아니 율레야 코랑게 뇌네 여바지 난게 유나야 Korangi ngone Mindus cheche nyam deche tando yang lodo strebe wongdo tanda zenya dang ane na ya niga yong de nye chila ane so su diyu gi gane tongba nye tongne yang tando yang do yong de chi ti pepe tong che 다 캬바르도 봐봐 통단에 가르쳤으나 미니버디 다시 매버 대권하니 통단나 신시지 맞다 고랑기 뭐네 매버디 고랑기 춘이래도 무슨 니가라야 아니 단냐 버샤 밤 디웅 통통에 될래 통람 시체다 봐도 싱세 계제되다 신뢰려 봐.
So here in relation to this verse 29 of the sixth chapter, it's talking about the conventional sort of analyzing minds and ultimately analyzing minds. And what is being said here is that the conventionally analyzing mind cannot determine, it can't understand or determine the ultimate. It doesn't harm, it doesn't sort of lay harm to the ultimately analyzing world or the ultimate world, but it doesn't harm it, but it's not able to know it, it's not able to determine or understand it. So what is it when we're talking about this ultimately analyzing form of mind? And here in relation to the example that we have of this of the floating hairs, understanding the reality of the complete lack of the floating hairs uh, would be the result of someone who's sort of employed this ultimately analyzing mind. So who would see that? So there are kind of a little bit sort of different levels. There may be someone whose instance still has some kind of mistaken mind, but is able to understand that the person there who has no, on a sort of manifest way, the person there who has no hairs, but is seeing falling hairs. There's a sort of, we can develop some kind of understanding that that's not a sort of reality. But and if we related to this to the way in which we engage with emptiness, then there could be someone who has started to understand that things don't exist from their own side, started to sort of meditate on that and on emptiness, and started to understand that nothing, exists from its own side. But because they're still seeing it they're still not attained sort of higher Arya states of understanding, not attained direct perception of it, then they still have a basis for some um, sort of there's still a basis for a sort of clinging or rather that their understanding of seeing their way of seeing the suchness is not complete. There's still some kind of underlying basis still left there. Whereas for the Arya beings who have seen the ultimate with direct perception, they're on the Arya paths. Then those kind of beings have and their way of seeing the suchness, the ultimate reality, is complete. So we see this difference also in the ways of seeing in relation to what was sort of it's kind of like ordinary level of beings and the Arya level of beings. So they this the beings for the ordinaries still have this appearance of something existing from their own side, even though they've developed some understanding that things do not exist from their own side. But they still have a way to go. Whereas the perception of the direct perception of the ultimate of the Aryas is a complete way. So based on these ways of seeing, um, the ultimate way of seeing is often in relation to this example is say the seeing the emptiness of the complete the complete non-existence of the floating hair. So that would be directly seeing the ultimate the nothing exists from its own side. But this would be the second kind of person we talked about in terms of the sickness. So this is the people on the path of seeing who have the complete understanding of the ultimate.
아니 똥바디 동바데 통당데 니체제 지금 동바데 통해야 돼 그래서는 지금 삼로망보지 땅체 미망보지 랍체 아니 콤지지 안에 동바레 세 삼로딜레데 이제 녀바도는 전체 최담제 규마레 슬라드 전배 동바 슈치보다 그즈 메드 전배 최담제 규마나 시레스도 다가 이제 고아시라 레토음도가 다 동박 오늘 전에 단기 다시 김에 대권한이 미니버디기 통원하신 이제 통원도 전배 신이 아니 그 나도 자와체버디 규마를 슬라 빼나 아주 단다 아 규마킹기 아니 랑부치 주베템바 신세지 규마킹기 랑부치 주베템바 근데 랑부치디 규메 랑부레스 수세프 라토레스라나 규마킹 코랑 라토로와 오딘스티기 라토마로 오딘스티기 곧 배드 코랑와 따가도 규마 따갈래 그래데 랑부치 지보 지경레셔스라 그러와 배 동아균 통이면서 거고 되게 나와다 셔바 정말 슈슈 쉬고 레드 점에 다랑 통되지. 근데 전도 야 주위는 가상 통에 랑부치 주도 통에 랑부치를 드린 규메 랑부치의 저도 라해 인가 여러 봐. 이听的 신세계 단다 가란주 그 동바 슈침보 가서 통바 대수기 아니 되는 규모 차려야 돼. 슈쳐야지. 용도 점에 가란주 저자 단다 아 군주 통당대 세상을 당연히 리가 신체 준비 가지고 슈침보 통바 대유 dob기 아니 통해야지래 세대 그리고 딱딱진 대화를约定 수도
Ici, quand on regarde la tête, les phénomènes sont semblables, les différents.
And so in terms of seeing things as an illusion, then there are two ways of seeing things to be to seeing them to be empty of a particular way of existing, and therefore to see through them to an illusion. And for instance, if we're sort of talking about seeing the ultimate, understanding the ultimate nature of things, then there could be someone who studies very hard, trains well in the sort of reasons and instructions related to the understanding of the empty nature of things, and sort of habituates themselves to it. But that kind of person may not really still develop a very strong kind of sense of the things not existing from their own side. But then if we draw the example of the second person from the floating hair example, where the second person doesn't have the disease at all and can see the person who has no hair at all as the appearance of the floating hairs, and it's really very clear to them that there's absolutely, it's all completely fake or false, then that kind of person will have an ability to see very clearly that things are illusory. Like although they perform functions, they also are illusory. And if we, in our example of the magician and the magical emanation of the appearance of elephants, then actually the only one who can really say what is true is really the person themselves. All of the audience have been completely taken in by the sort of magical emanation, by the show, the magical emanation, and they see things exactly as light in an elephant. They don't see; they just see a really sort of true elephant, and so they have the appearance and grasping to see things as a completely true elephant and not as a magical elephant, whereas the magician himself would be able to see very clearly that it is an illusion, it's completely false. And so however strong our understanding of emptiness is, then so much stronger our ability to present something as being illusory. And so, however strong we're able to understand the truth of things, then the false sort of conventional nature of things, then how much stronger we're able to present the ultimate nature of them.
유만의 길이 슬랍네 삼로당에게 야 지금 나로라야 세부직 차라고 해야 돼 최담지 유만의 길이 세 계제 쉐베가로 야 유만 유미기 시디 고 랑보치데 아 한예동양 고 랑보치 말와 제장가 되게 말한주 삼로디 경기 아니 최 강에 요 말에 엔 통해도 정말로 주만다시 통대 왜서 계제디 로에게 내가 유도 제장가 냠샤 난갔다고 제도 규마다고 세 계제디 시험도 준비 제도 규마도 부디 냠샤 난겠다고 가서 덴바디 답체 토부지 통원도 준비 아니 최담제도 마 군주 간에 냠시 제도비 가서야 안도 통원도 준비 아니 다 들어 정말로 아니 아니 지로 출제 통데 지레마도 아니 되는 요 말에서 삼로들 얘기 내가 정보 유도 준비 제장고 군주 규모다고 해야 돼. 소 자화제당을 통해 탄얘기 자화제당을 통해 이 코랑기 면에면은 자화제초를 했어. 빼나 랑보치디 코랑랑기 친이 유메 랑보디 코랑기 친이기 루바모 랑은이 루베 제레 랑보치 말해대 이내 코에 자화제가 샤초도 없어. 유메기 랑보디 코랑기 면에 메나양 에네 랑보 자화제바도 셰초도 없어. 어디 벤자르고를 마도 야 유메랑보디 줌마 이만한 신체제 아니 최 베낭아란조 품바다 까발라서 좀 디리스 줌바 디르다 아주 줌버 두바 세디게 좀 비체 주마리스 주마리스 아니 진행 자화체 초월스 줌마다 그러셨어 데려 거듭 초마리스 거듭에 가르치나 코랑 경연에 매나양 자화체 초월스 배나 주마다 그랬어 노즈 봐 세워지지야 자르셔가지고 고글에 봐도 야 참령 알아주고 세미나로야 정말로 코랑 매말 요 말이 아니 주마다 그래 랑보치디 랑보치를 매번나 신체지 아니 되게 통대 정말 트리비 왕들의 세제 도신 디시점이 망고 중고 있어요 어제단디 야 공지에다 제가 대만 얘기 넘쳐디 아니 뷰타고지 신고를 해서야겠다 내가 꿈을 땅고에 쪼디 디레도가
So here, so something when we're talking about this topic of being like an illusion, we have to be, there's a very important point that we have to be, very clear about when we're sort of contemplating this. And that is that sometimes there's this tendency to say that everything's just like an illusion and everything, so in the example, the basis of the illusion that there's no uh, sorry, there's a tendency to see this as everything, to read this or understand this as thinking that everything is completely false, that there's nothing at all. There's this tendency to sort of think of it that since it's all like an illusion, then there's absolutely nothing at all there. But we have to sort of just be careful of the danger of falling into that sort of way of thinking. There are two sort of phrases which are used in terms of the way of seeing things in the meditative voice is understood to be seeing things in a space-like way, but from out of the meditative voice into a sort of a subsequent meditation sessions, then we see things as being illusory-like. So this there's this seeing things to be illusory. It's like we understand that it's mistaken in some way, but there's also a level of functionality to things, so that we're able to see that things, although they don't exist from their outside, they still have a level of functionality. Even for the magically produced elephant that doesn't exist, it doesn't exist as a magical, as an elephant, a real elephant from at all, but is a magical elephant, but it still can perform some kind of functions. It still has a kind of functionality, it just doesn't exist from its own side as a real elephant. So this danger is that we'll start to see everything around us, pots, pillars, the cup on my table here, as just thinking it's completely false. and that there, is a danger of thinking that nothing exists at all. So we have to be very careful to understand this very subtle point that although things don't exist from their own side, that they are able to still function, and although we understand that in an illusory way that they are, the product of seeing things through a mistaken mind, but what's important here is to not, to be able to have those two understandings, so that we have to what we're being encouraged to do here is to understand clearly the presentation of the two truths in order to help us not make this mistake.
다디 워들이야 아니 다데바니게 남샤 아 도스시지 야고지지 고츠비이나 아니 데네시네 다다 우마랑 유비기 아니 아 지기 단다 땅 가정문지 세부시고지 다 포루지리 야 랑규비기 따와디 슈슈무 시고지 냐메 인자 아니 저장아 탄다랑 유비기 뭐 틴주비기 가정문진기 나신제제 랑규비기 따와디 그 지기 아 하바동 가정문진기 슝디 세부시고지 야가나로레 냐 가고 치자 아니 별난을 들려장 가고 차체 뒤에 준비 제르무치게 din나로 랍지주요래 다 din나로네 된다 조 개치슈디 안저기 따위 구름디 지원도 준비 팅규비게 따와게 다 고마들이야 다 등이들이 랑규비게 따와디 지기 세고 제제 하고야다 아니 하바도 단독 가자 지기 같이 지기 파 랑규비기 슝네 송베 아니 아주 마소네다 가사 랑현으로 봐 세기 계제셰기 시 차슈지 바까 투비이나 아니 텔레팀베 다음에기 남샤데 세고 시부지 셰 투고유도 전배 제상 다들 오마 공부를 세게 나는 믹스에게 제럼 붙이고 굴려견체 아니 랑규비 가자고 꼴라 지 슝 단들 하마 과에는 야가 계획 슝도도 참아 루진 자시요. 되게는 저냐 마음발을 흘려주 정부에는 도저스야 내가 전부래. 안디디 이제 다 단다. 당주 두주 이견배 차상 얘게 야고치는 지시자 토마를라 아니디고 슝디 따춤부 쉬어인데 저런 저기 단다 구리 나셔죠. 저거디 매게 당고 커도디 마 차상지 가장 더리 나셔. 다이네 얘기 당고 커도디 미창에 도나시부지 치원도 전배 양 디 강게도 시라 라고마 차나 양디 가서래 방보를 섬제니 기란조 처리 제시죠 되기 강들에는 nembe디 잡샤 다 단다디 슝디 나저장가디 랭기다 천제기 잠데 디가 샤위지 아니 다디 만샤병 원들이야 당하란조 참데 과학도 레벨 쓰다 데니기 남샤디 이 가서래 마송처에 슈 다가랑데 가르간 레이어를 시도전 베트남 사준도 자워르미시기 아니 시지 숨지 가투이네 송주가라 다난 그래 어디 참 디가 레디어래 또 딜레서데 저장 랑규비기 따와디 자워르미시 로 망보 굴레준치 네 오메 따와로 삼로 시부지 땅베니 달로 주주로서 늦주로서 시지 딜레스 까나베 까데리야 아주 남상고랑 언제 여름치 로 주주된 주대사 간데르지나 삼로 코고요 봐 얘네 라자도 저 여름치 그랑 꼭 얘기 계제 말해 네가 알아서 주더래 알아서 가르쳐 주면 아주 다디 삼로 준 단계요 봐 세상에 여름치 그 세상을 랑규비 따와를 쉬쉬을 때도 와 세상 송구로 봐 아니 단다 레벨 다른 규비게 레벨 게라 시슈디 레벨 랭겐지레 제가 레벨 랭겐지기 지금 로마지면로 삼십년 네 지금 삼로 땅야다 레벨 랭겐지기 슝아 지금 체메 태권한이 세야서로다 되네 지금 부터 가자 한다 아주 가지고 또게 봐와다 늦어지마 로온도 준비 지금 레벨 디고 기루르지 삼삼씩 대형으로 오시 디도 준비 깔리 슈슈슈지 경고를 미치기 아니 굴레 가와게 수도 오마랑 규베게 따와디 아니 배 세고지 켄체 니 땡규비게다 빠다 다와타와다 아니 제르미치게다 더 우메다 라바도 우마주고라 소도 세제 랑규베 다와데 칼리 칼레마 마샤나체 땡규비게 다와데 얀넴베게 도몬두지게 나올라 디 남베 인자 엔타다 측제디 다랑규베게 다와 가야게 아니 직접 쪼고디다 다다 그대란 게 신이 땡줄은 텔로고베 오보지베 치 동용 오보지베 주주는 테네르 중요면 세제 왔다디 라소베 직접 좀디 딜레 거래 직접이 이런 중요하면 남들이
34, 634. Yeah, dear. Yeah, and so here in terms of understanding things to be elusive, and so in terms of presenting the truths, the presentation to beginning to look at the presentation of the truths here. In what you see in Rimpoche's text, Illuminating Intent, is he has some advice for us in relation to understanding the object of negation in relation to the different schools and understanding the view of the different schools in relation to the ultimate reality. And he says it's the case that the object of negation in the Svatantra Madhyamaka system, it's actually very hard to find clear sort of scriptural sort of citations and quotes which clearly delineate what the object of negation is in the Svatantrika Madhyamaka system. It's hard to find it in the Indian text and also hard to find it even in later Tibetan texts. But what Ajay Rimshi is advising us to do is to become to become very clear about this view of Svatantrika Madhyamaka. So what he advises us to do is to become very clear about that, and he spends a tremendous amount of effort, to go into, to look into these this view of the autonomous or Svatantrika Madhyamaka view, because he feels that we have to understand that the objective negation of that school, but also the presentation of the view of ultimate reality from the perspective of the Svatantrika Madhyamaka school. So that from their perspective, the Svatantrika Madhyamaka perspective, a person or other phenomena or exist from their own side. So they exist. So that person, that view of the person or all phenomena existing from their own side, we need to understand that view very clearly, because what we'll find, we need to be able to be very clear, to understand it very clearly, because that view will become of great interest in relation to our studies of the Prasangika Madhyamaka school, because that will become the object of negation of the Prasangika Madhyamaka school. And so in order to engage with the great texts and the understandings of the different philosophical schools, we can't, if we've not understood the previous presentations of the way things exist, and also what is the object of negation for the different schools, and it's very difficult for us to understand deeply the higher systems. Now, in terms of this text that we've been studying here, it's a vast text. Even I'm not skilled in presenting it, and I don't understand all of the details very clearly. And you asked me to teach on the selflessness of person, but I feel that if you haven't understood the previous subjects, then it would be very difficult for you to understand the later subject, which is the subject of the selflessness of person. So I've picked out some verses in the beginning of the text in order to help you to understand the selflessness of phenomena. And So this is we've reached in those verses that I picked out, we've reached up to the verses where the Chandrakirti starts to talk about the version of the true truth.
당동양 최탐제 랑원이 루바 요 말이 슬랍드 점베 당동양 지 랑원은 마주바 남샤 시긴라 다 최탐제 코랑교 면이 루바 지 마셰다 아니 당동양 로마데베 지 용구 여비 나스 다또 코데오 셰베나 아니 껴 가릴리그레 슬랍나 아니 파베냠샤 이시스티 또 파베냠샤 이시디 아주 계산 라바나신 융업이 뉴스다 지문 지신 신경 때 차득이요래 다 융업은 뉴스 지문 지신 신경세도 계산 또저지 지난주 삼로 코비나 타달을 주도 따왔나 신시 아니 파타 녀르 파 땅치 다 타니슈 되니데 다단다 코비냠샤 이시들이 다디 팅주 버레스 와래 팅주 버스디 인지미지 룩도 뭐 삼로 땅뭐 와체 다 팅주 운에데 가르스람나 다데 주고 주 코랑 거는데 자 니니 타던 거는 지에매바 대방 오선도 통되게 다 땡겨버리스 덴데 바베냠샤 이 시들이야 아니 삼바당베이나 게디처럼 그 랑회는 좀 루발라 최지에 샤서락 말에 랑회는 루베 때지 고고레스 라베이나 한 바베냠샤 이 시디 아니 아 알소레 타니베 최함 군주비 최매바 최겐데 차로 그랬어 당 안줄라 람나 개바케 매딩이 선로시 제라말 람나 개바케요 말을 아니 너 데발레 개바시다요 말 셈잠발레 따베 남샤 토스 타르가 인생 시다 개바로 랑규벌레 개바시고 우리 가진선 랑규베기 파베 냠샤 이시게 따베 남샤 로단다 틴규버다 랑규베니 거로 총부 차대도 전배 아니 계제도 시에되어 쉬우시하래 지난데 인도 전배 경고를 미치기 다 띵할 평부 쉬어도 송고에 내가 가르스나 대두기 따따위 세대 답에 가서는 예 로망 깔래 잡지 따디 가도 될 튕기비기 따와들 다 인식도 세 아니 내가 대면으로 쓰고라 돈용 오지비 주 테네림이 중요면서 제장 냠샤 이시디 데몽 오선도 통 되기 아니 가리 매버서래 시도점 운에서나 대코난이 통바 다랑 답에 제 토를 다 대코난이 통딩이 로디기 아니 가리 매버서를 군주비 취 매버서냐 손으로 사도로 아 시제 대화 당부디 랑주벌 당벌에 어디 군중기 송에 당부들이에요.
So this is in relation to verse. So I've taught you up to these three verses, which is Holiness is particularly fond of, which are related to from the Prasanghika perspective, related to refuting the Svatandrika Madhyamaka view. And here, His Holiness is actually, was tremendously interested in the Svatandrika Madhyamaka view, and actually said at some time that he thought perhaps he had been a student of the great Svatandrika Madhyamaka master Baba Viveka at some time. So he had a strong affinity within his process of meditating on the view of the reality. Now, the first of these, so His Holiness pulls out three particular verses from the middle, three particular verses from chapter 6, which help him have helped him to understand the difference between the Prasanghika Madhyamaka school and the Svatandrika Madhyamaka school. The first one is verse 34 from chapter 6, where it says, if the intrinsic characteristics of things were to arise dependently, things would come to be destroyed by denying it. Emptiness would then be a cause for the destruction of things, but this is illogical. So no real entities exist. So here, this is us. If we take the meaning from the Prasanghika version, Prasanghika way of seeing things, and the Svatandrika, where the Prasanghika talk about things not existing from their own side, then from the Svatandrika view of holding things to exist from their own side, is being critiqued, and and so if we say that the person doesn't exist from their own side, then this Svatantrika Svatantrika presentation feels uncomfortable because it feels like there would be nothing left. That view would leave you with nothing left. So they, um, so they that this way of thinking about the mode of existence of phenomena would be for them is very difficult to understand. But the Prasangika system, when we use that analogy of a snake in put to a striped robe, then it's the Prasangika system that when is the person, because as you get closer and closer to the striped rope, you understand it's not a snake, but the person who is standing closest to the snake, we could say in the analogy, is actually the Prasangika system, who see the reality of there being no snake on the basis of the striped rope. And then what this verse talks about is how in the meditative equipoise on the nature of reality, which sees the lack of things existing from their own side, and which is a sort of the highest form of mind seeing the truth, a direct perception of the truth, then if you accept things to exist from their own side, then the meditative equipoise would destroy conventional phenomena because it would see things to exist not from their own side. And so this is not really said in relation to the Vaipashika, Sautantrika, or mind-only schools, although the mind-only school is a subtler view than the previous ones, but really in relation to the Svatantrika Madhyamaka school, where they have a similar kind of presentation. And so His Holiness has chosen these verses to help us to understand the sort of delineate the difference between the Svatantrika Madhyamaka school and the Prasangika view. And this particular thing is called the sort of the consequence of the meditative equipoise destroying things or conventional phenomena.
제장가 아니 제르무치기 들려야 믹시기 디나로라야 아니 제셰디 우마고라브세 나로라야 아니 로 컨디지기 아니 제바체고 요레스 된담로 주베 로스니데 컨디지기 제고 요레 한일로 주베 로스니데 컨디지고 요레 시제 송원도 잠베 네 우마고라브 세게 나로라야 아니 발하바도 된담로 주베 로디 한이 나베 마심버스 한이 수도 잠베 아니 마란주베 군주베 최직 또 군주베 최대 답변아 이런 종아 통용 요리 이니 라바다 강바다 고세 두설 텐치 다 세고름 제세니데 디레션스 어디 내가 좀 침디요 디르워 다 무슨문이 안주 제고에 대 가발로 투버스나 다단다 딩규베 제바체다 나시 알아 세공 림포체 스니 비게 들어세고 간디니디 코랑기 뇌내도 시제 통에 친구도스 라와디아레미도 강바디아레미도 고디아레미도 삼로디아레미도 그 풍부하고 네도스 통데 질리아 풍부하에 나로레 메디니지 도스 통에 친구도스 다디 카르레스 안데 마침 지제바 닌디지 제와야 참데라 신에 아니 가리를 제버렸어요. 좀 단담을 제버렸어. 아도지기 아니 람산 지 미지케 요한치 메디 가왈도 라바드레베 고드레베 도스 제버체나 디 타니랑로 도스 제지 제버체는 타니 떠르데서 로지레 마도 단담 제벨로 말해서 디 세와 하고 그래서지 다 랑규벌 바도 송규브선 로지레 대원이버티
So these are three sort of consequential arguments. So the first is the consequence that an Arya's meditative equipoise would become the cause for the destruction of things or phenomena. The second one is the consequence that the conventional truths would not withstand conventional analysis. And here, this is said in relation to verse 635, where it says, "Thus, when such phenomena are analyzed, nothing is found as their nature apart from suchness. So the conventional truth of the everyday world should not be subjected to thorough analysis." And so here, this is discussing the difference in the way in which the conventional, the conventionally analyzing mind operates and the way in which the ultimately analyzing mind operates. And in relation to this, in Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary, he mentions that he sort of questions, what does it mean to be a conventionally analyzing mind, and what does it mean to be an ultimately analyzing mind? And if we apply this to the sort of way in which we engage with looking and analyzing a person and in relation to their aggregates, sort of, if we just ask the question, here I am in front of you, this person wearing a golden robe and a yellow robe, and with my sort of appearance and stuff. And if you were to ask, where is that person, and you start looking and saying, oh, it's not his arm, it's not his leg, it's not his hand, it's not all of these things, and therefore and eventually say, oh, that we can't find the Serkong Rinpoche that appears in front of us. Well, actually, this is not a way of analyzing on an ultimate level. That's still a way of analyzing on the conventional level, because the question that is being asked in terms of the ultimate analyzing consciousness is, Serkong Rinpoche appears to exist from his own side, from the side of the aggregates, but so then it's asking, what is so does he exist the way he appears from the side of the aggregates or not? And then looking for the person, in that ultimate context of, do they exist that way from their own side? Do they ultimately exist as the different parts of the person, and then at that ultimate level, but in the context of thinking of existing from its own side, from the side of the aggregate? So that is an ultimately analyzing mind, and we have to be careful not to confuse these two, because what's being said is that it's a critique of the Spartantrika Madhyamaka, saying that you're not analyzing things in a conventional way. Sorry, in an ultimate way. That is, you cannot analyze the conventional with an ultimately analyzing mind. So this is the second sort of verse that His Holiness picks out the consequence of conventional phenomena, the consequence of conventional truths being able to withstand reasoned analysis.
다 숨버디 태와 숨버디 아 태와 당보니디 야보지 하고와당 태와 니 당보니디 야고는 로소나 시네 다 태와 숨버디 그 된다 그랬으나 아니 디니 값을 리버 강식이 있어 다 된다고 줘베 값된아 랑게 친이기 루비 깨왔어야 돼. 랑게 친이기 루비 깨와다 직보 깨져 참아 셔야 돼. 키랑게 셔야 돼. 다 랑규비 팅규비로리야. 시샤네. 랑규비 키랑게 깨져 셔단 돼. 다 된담로 제베 갈라니 디 셔서면도 아니 그다 지기 가서 그래. 타니비 원도 제베 있는 양디 멘두스 저장하다 결한기 아니 깨웠어야 돼. 다 군주도 된담 이게 돈이 깨지셔서 매들 전에 다 결한기 깨워야 돼. 가르기 깨워야 돼. 아니 다 태워야 돼 봐.
And so the third verse is the verse 37 from the 6th chapter, where it says, empty things dependent on convergences, such as reflections and so on, are not unknown. And just as from an empty thing like a reflection, a perception can arise that bears its form. Sorry, no, I read the wrong one. Sorry. In the context of suchness, certain reasoning disallows arising from self or from something other, and that same reasoning disallows them on the conventional level too. So by what means then is your arising established? So this third verse is it relies on relies on going through the first two consequential arguments first of all, and then this sort of brings those two together. So what it's saying is that the Prasangika Madhyamaka system is the system of tenets is saying to the Svatandika Madhyamaka person, you believe in inherently existent production of things, and yet I've shown that the inherently persistent production can't function on an ultimate level, and I've also shown that it doesn't function on the conventional level. So then, what kind of production are you positing? Because it's neither tenable on a conventional level nor on an ultimate level. So this is the question being asked of the Svatandika Madhyamaka by the Prasangika Madhyamaka in verse 37.
다 우마랑 유비기 따와도 따와 랑유비기 달래 하슈디 가르잖아 다 코랑기 뇌니 뒤어봐 찍지 마시나 치어 가르이네 적절하금에도 세게 다 깨자 때마 손에 토마디간 레온도 전에 아니 신에 다 되게 탐지 까봐인다 다 맞음이 지게 로더마와 시디 맞아 강사 찍 아니 상제기 람라 도야 찍다 라바도 ngaranzu 주게 당징 tel야 타라망보지 체제 아니 맞아 손에다 용으로 땅 세네레 아니 짬에도 땅 오류 전배 아니 타마디 리지간 레디오 전배 신이 아니 다 생구 소리지게 나로라 칼레 터지고 वर्ष나 다 최담지 때네 따고점 제 시도 전배 아니 그다 코랑경에 로버지에 메디오 전배 근데 매바 차 로레냐메다 맞아마서나 감람 아니야 지 셈나로라 미디어지 용부여자 아니 되나로라 제상가 참 다라래야 딱 맞아마서는 같이 다슈도 바 케이크 차비 주어들라 람상 프레젠테이션들로 우마 튕유베기 아니 뭐보통 뭐 숙련라서 뭐 솔로드나 마다바야미 제대로 티 숙련 소동네 셰바티 넘버 제주들 아니 대신 오버 탐제 또나니 동이 달래라도 제벌 주르스 다디 싫어닝 부기 아니 수 동바오 동바니 수수 수 동바오 세들 잠직샤 디버도디 랑유버 아주 미게 체라마 언도데버 셈점 우마바 파도 용소 저베겠다고 오늘 단에 파 켜도 버치네 다 튕기비기 신이 아니 때네 딱바 잠기 자시 회세기 신이 거화됐다 거한을 낸 도어스도 디네 낸 도요자 아니 다 퀴디게와 관계 인물이 쭉 샤제 아니 동반이 속도 세도 졸랭고도 오버 동바 소년 나서가 철어도 나마다바에 맨 지더티 수년 소로네 샤바티 넘버 제주들 대신 오버 탐제 또나 돈이 다더라도 제버죠 동반이 인상 될 때네 아니 맞아요 자제 탐제 시에도 용글이 이 매나 가수 고랑경은 유엘라바이나야 대다 탐제 가셔레스 단담경원의 요 말에 꾸주도야 요 말에 해서 어때디 인디카도 될 달래디샤
So here from verse 36 there, there's sort of refuting the Prasangika refuting the existence of things existing from their own side on both the conventional and ultimate level. But the subtlest answer that the subtlest response that the Svatandika Madhyamaka have to the Prasangika Madhyamaka, which is that if things did not exist from their own side, then you just won't be able to posit any kind of phenomena at all. And the four tenet systems, the four Buddhist tenet systems, we have to remember that they are designed for one person to follow the path to complete Buddhahood by engaging with subtler and subtler understandings of the nature of reality, and then removing step by step our self-grasping. But when we get to the last or the subtlest thing that will come to our mind, would be the idea that things are merely imputed, so they don't exist from their own side, but there may be this danger or fear that we would think that because things are merely imputed or don't exist from their own side, then they would have no, there would be non-existence. They would have no sort of basis to be existent. So, in the relation to that, what Chandrakirti says in verses 37 and 38 is empty things dependent on convergences such as reflections and so on are not unknown. And just as from an empty thing, like a reflection, a perception can arise that bears its form, likewise, although all things are empty, they do arise from emptiness in a robust way. Since no intrinsic nature exists in either of the two truths, phenomena are neither eternal or annihilated. And so here, a little bit in relation to the first two lines of verse 38, where it says, likewise, although all things are empty, they do arise from emptiness in a robust way. We can very much connect that with the statement in the Heart Sutra, where it says that form is empty, emptiness is form. And once we've gone through the refutation and we've understood the refutations of the Vaibhashika Sautrantikam all the way up to the Prasangika system, and then we develop this understanding that things can function, but still be merely imputed and still function. And then, so when it says in the last line of verse 36, where it says, so by what means then is your arising established? The Prasangika Madhyamaka system will say that, form, form is emptiness and emptiness is form, because things are empty, all presentations of functionality are tenable, and for an existence from its own side is neither tenable in the conventional sort of perspective or from the ultimate perspective.
제장가 일단 고 지난주 딩네 지금 동반이 담라야 도나 유딩이 지기 난 가도 이네 지금 생구 술 지나는 년이야 동바 동바 때는 파바디기 등신의 컨디스 뉴그리스의 그 트버딩이 야바도 표도가 지고 요래 아니 니바디 동바 때는 파브저게 쇼라 아니 제르미치 숨만다시 아니 때는 따바성게 자체 태당데 컨디스 용구리 세디 대화 표바당 안수저 심 소르지나는 샤타가 지고 요래 어디니 니디 아니 야고 제 따고 잡토베이나 신이 완전 마선에 다 주다마와 시기 아니 림바디 소소 지금 그게 로정장 많이 봐. 안 주다마와 시기 삼로당당데 나로 고도스. 가진서 니 삼로당당데 나로라 주다마와 시기 삼로당당데 녜나 도스. 가진서 니 줄라 등진 타라 그 삼마 아레줄라 도스. 리인도 점에 디 안가로 라트에 쳇도 아니에들 로정장 유에세 지당 아니 디 따와데 때나 파우저에 쉬고라 아니 얘기담 최담제 때나 따와서 자세 대단한데 걸라 하나지 최도가지 종세지 중시 디직팅 투베이나 아니 신에 그래서 그래 넌 동반일이야 같이 깔래 가고 있나 다 소마대랑 잡래 아니 체딜 소좀 잡마더네 체 슈만 소잡네 용고인세 삼로디엘레 그래 가르지는세나 아니 딩기 탐제디 나로래야 아디 체딜이야 다지 밀류톱 아 밀류톱네 당에 그문에 되는 메시나로래 지지 체쇼디 가르쳐요 쓰듯한데 아니 장 엄마 네 주기 장 엄마데 아니 암 뭐지부 수녀데 뇨모다 뇨몽기 자와 당신들이 해봐 얘기다 얘기 띵스다 가서 그래 자 근데 인도 잠에 니 매버 쇠라 당에 체들로 깔래 잡니 좋은 생활 맞추나야 아니 겨와 탐제도 되네 아 라마 기회 신이 제일 송지 당할 내가 지에들 디마드메 세운도 잠에 신의 다동의 처바된 받다르스네 다동의 딱와르시 얘기 라마 가요래 시에데 주어디 가르스 라마디 전담 전담된 것들 된다 라마들에도 와 딜을 된지 신의 아주 맞습니다. 심슈 루주들을 심슈 깨지. 나 제대로 저도 아자 누가샤. 아니 딜을 땐베 아니 취어 간대지네. 내용고야 섬고야 공고야 모두도 제고도 전에 어 취업에 들리지를 하고도 말해. 르당 망고지 채우려대 얘네 르당 볼 때는 협상 전부 좀 마도는 수준의 르당 그 말과 어디 계산 통해 시도 양도 아니 가지고 니마 당보 고조를 qab라야 아니 마셔 가르치는 제고래 아니 최대리지 제가 될 때는 알 계산 가르라 그래 시도점be 나 단다 봐도 아니 얘기 내가 줘봐이 얘네 동에 쉬우지 용돼야지 그뒤에 차로도 당 얘기 동해 땐도 제메베 아니 대화지 단다 봐도 론용매도 다들 줘발라 최대리지면은 탑도 쓰지니 아 땐도 대화되다 최기 랑가드 마소네 아 따고자고 그러와 뭐 디천에다 달래 에 다시 경기 시체와면에 닝닝기 닝체와지지니 땡다들이 반대 나와다보다 아니 지름 붙이고 뭐 공부랍세 돈에다 집 된다 조두지니 에 게임 다지 얘기 자벨라마다 아니 계획이냐 봐 저기 아 지금 강 알이야 깔 나무다 신시지 현재랑 에 가시 얘기에 고요 말이 내려되시는 로드 수로지 현재랑 아니 다 지금이 봐 아주 님의 시즈지른가 남시 사와 쉬우지 되는 손데 이내 저랑 로당 친구 지지 단한 친구 지지 얘들 주둔이 마도 शे고 요 말데 저랑 주둔 시행하지 배 공개 쇼게 공개야 공다 공개야 안에 되네 디버로리아 진짜만 보지서 아니 알렉스게 되네 만 보지송 저랑 배다 그거 차오지 레바이 차오 차년 차차we 유지리스
Donc, si vous souhaitez des explications.
So it's an explanation here, a little bit of these verses at the end, which is Holiness, and really focuses on a lot. I haven't been able to explain these in great detail, but for those who have a strong interest in emptiness and the instructions on emptiness, and who wish to sort of determine determine what the real meaning of the emptiness is, then one very important factor is to think about how does that understanding of emptiness, how would that help us to harm our self-grasping, and then if we are able to sort of clearly determine what the meaning of emptiness is, then how would that help us to understand the way in which things are dependently designated, and we need to really personally take hold of these the four tenet systems, because these four tenet systems are not sort of separate people. They're we need to understand how these four tenet systems are required for ourselves, not only just to study them, but that we need to take those as that we need to understand that the grosser up to the subtlest forms of understanding of what self-grasping is are inside of me, inside of oneself, and for the purpose of helping to reduce and remove those, eliminate those, then I will sort of try to learn about these subjects such as emptiness in the way that things are merely imputed. And of course, this subject is an extremely complicated subject. It's very tough, so to speak. But even if it's difficult, then if I can try to chew a bit of it, chew with my teeth a little bit on it to try and get the meaning, and continue to do that, and then this is a wonderful thing, and very important to have deep inside of us the sort of the perspective that I've been born here with this precious human rebirth, and what would be the best way to make use of this precious human real rebirth would be to identify the real enemy, the real thing which makes me unhappy. And as we identify that to be the mental afflictions and the self-grasping, from that we start to to work towards understanding these complicated subjects. And even if we're not able to completely accomplish them in this life, then we hope that in future lives we will be able to meet these teachings and be able to meet with spiritual teachers to be able to explain them to you. And in fact, it's said that what is called the ultimate guru is actually said to be the ultimate itself. So in terms of, we should be able to generate in ourselves some kind of confidence to be able to lay down some sort of propensities to be able to study and engage with this topic in the future. And so seeing the advantages that that understanding these things brings us, and the strong sort of promise or courage to not give up. And once we've begun to do this process, we need to think about what the benefits of it are. What do we need to do in order to understand these things clearly, and also what the benefits are of them. And so not just being able to sort of suppress sorry, we've constantly wished for happiness, and yet we end up with suffering. So then we have to think about how we might what would help us to attain a complete end to suffering, and then it's only the dharma that would lead us to the complete end of suffering. So this is the path. So then we take hold of and take personal hold of this path that leads us to those exalted states. So here I've tried to explain a little bit of the meaning of Chandrakirti's text, Entering the Middle Way, and Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary on that, Illuminating the Intent. And I've sort of tried to give a sort of summary of the meaning of the text. And thank you, thanks to the great kindness of my root Lama and my teachers, who have been so kind to me and who have worked so hard and been so kind to me. So even if you've been here in this teachings, and some of it is very difficult to understand and it's been extremely hard, but you've made a tremendous amount of effort. I've taught you here for 4 hours, but you've also been in meditation sessions morning and evening, and also with Alex's session as well. And so I wonder whether not only your body has got hot, but your mind also has got hot.
안디 뉴전베 아란즈 라마직 제벌 쇼 시제 몰람 슈숑보 자고 요나 아니 담에 템베 라마 데리지 제벌 쇼 세제 다 몰람디 녀벌 따고 요 다지 당 양지기 아란즈 즉 방보지 요래다 저저 참말로 아주 또즈 구초래 당아주 국마트에 단단 자라 가르스나 녀모 커도 매버 쇠지다 타바도 녀모 땐도 게 매버 쇠바티 당진 매버 쇠라 타지도 라 레버 인사 안 딘디 땡킹게 라마치다 슝지 매버 이나 아니 바베지 아주 가르서 그래 아니 가수 지금 타고 셰강 곰베 가수 지금 또번 이거 가수 지역이네 한마디 아주 등진기 전요 요구친데야 근데 인도 전면 아주 민지그람도 최시그람도 가뒤네 아니 아 냠돈도 투여지 아니 저런 줄 지금 냠네 등니 최고 삼삼 여디니 지라 근데 인지 미지디 샘의 샤로치 근데 제도 당 저런 줄 가와 제시 오네 직다 단다 투줄이야 프랑스리아 차와체가로 공신 저의 투줄이야 저런 줄데 망부지야 데 루루치지 안최 투줄 당체 아들지 제토바들은 얘기 지금 예수랑 슈유 예수랑 제거에 대해 가르쳐서는 단기년의 슈변하신 다 최고 된다라야 투조 땅의 전에디 전부를 나는 쉬고 공부를 해. 라바도 단다 슝딘데지 체도 아니 투조 땅에 대해 들리게 공부를 해. 아니 제장도 여러 뭐지 라마 현담만 잡아 사천부 인쇄고에 좀 주직디 군중기 송주 마원난 그래 대 이는 슈잡사 용서 줘봐대 다음에도 쉐어를 슈게 지단 전주섬 슈게 요즘에 먼저 산지기 땜바 치마메바 제세도 버디르다 어디 인도 좀 몇년 줘 드리지 나토버들 닝 타원의 지수랑 슈유
And so, with this understanding that the only one path to removing our self-grasping is this path of understanding the selflessness, then we often make prayers to meet a guru that can teach this path to us. But we should be very careful to also make sure to sort of pray for a guru who'll be able to reveal these things, such as the selflessness to us. It, of course, people have an urge to study Tantra and these other very complex meditations and subjects. But the most urgent thing is for us is to be able to find a direct counterpoint to our the mental afflictions and the grasping, and something which will help us to finally forever eliminate that. So we have to imagine that whatever is going on for us at the moment, we're always going to be we're at the moment we're like a slave to the self-grasping, and so if we can have deep inside of us a strong urge to practice sort of combination of both the liberating and ripening path, but particularly this emphasis on the liberating path, then then this will be the most sort of urgent and useful thing for us. And at this time, France has been incredibly hard. You've made an effort to come here to give your time to understanding the Dharma, which I rejoice in. I think rejoice in that. Why do we, why would I say rejoice in that? Because in this people giving time to the Dharma in this world these days is very rare. And not only beyond that, even rarer is that of people giving time to trying to understand these very complicated texts. And, our great master, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, has given many, many teachings, but we are able to meet his stainless, the Buddha's teachings through the stainless sort of way in which His Holiness emphasizes the importance of cultivating the wisdom of emptiness and the mind of bodhicitta. And so because of these things, I from the depths of my heart, I rejoice at everything all of you being here today.
Elizabeth and Chamburba and the Induzambe any Kazan Munechana de Dari Kajure, Dari Jail, Dari Jail Jogu, Dari Gulizility or Shoge, and the Kodujamato, Nambega Molam, Mega Drogodu, Tianila, Compassion, Anila, Tigre Sombre. Teni Tangunechana, Senu Shugi, Chudunji Tiji. Tenen dre de gasora nani ga dre nani ga ba nani ga dre de iden yang tanda 베겔리아 drogo야 내가 도지야 아니라 쉬네 아니라 다 디그리 생아 초전 니 토버를 지장가 에 차시 요가 막고지 당고도 양디 데즈 깔려요래 지난주 근데 되게 토리아 공셔 남바냐 도지 실수니 공다다 도지 니가다
And so, and Annie Elizabeth here, who I've known for a long time, and we're very good friends. When we first made the plan for the retreat, I was due to arrive on the 8th, and I wasn't able to arrive until the 9th, because I had to go to the Munlam in Paris. And then, so I requested permission from Anila to come later. And then after some various things happened, I was due to give a teaching session tomorrow morning, and then I was due to leave on the 14th. But some events occurred, and I have to leave tomorrow morning. So again, I had to request permission from Anila. So twice I requested permission from Anila to come later and to leave earlier. So the plans, so it was several changes of plans. So I thank you her for her patience, and say sorry to her, and thank you for her patience.
야 아니라게 준비 아니 저한테 레제베 용서 줘봐 현지 다 마델리도 좀 말해배 라마 기시 그뒤 배배네 저랑도 참말로 배 지금 산지 템버 유진이 내와다 아니 심지 오늘 전에 지초조들 때문에 심지 막부지리야 편도 짜신부 용도 좀 저랑도 년전 들어도 꿀리 중요를 근데 저 참말로야 아니 제수 일한다 한투시 수요
And so also not just to Elizabeth, but also to all of the people here, particularly the workers in the center here, who have not only done a tremendous amount of work for my visit, but also the visits here to this center of many lamas and geshis. And this is a cause for Buddhism to remain for a long time, and it's also a cause for the tremendous benefit for sentient beings. So I also rejoice in that, and thank you also from the depths of my heart.
대장다 미리를 소남 고 왕당 데리케 유두 아니라 모랑게 소남도 왕당 대시 저 참아지 용한데 년도 지요래 대인도 전배 아니라 한 구슬은 무슈바다 최대 야고 용에 모람 쉬고요 din내신 최대 야고 나론 구슬은 무슈가 나쉬
And so also each person has their own sort of merit and their own kind of power or ability. And Annie Elizabeth here is, really both of those, a great tremendous amount of merit and tremendous amount of sort of powerful ability to do things. And so make a prayer for her long life and also for her good health, and then request her to also take good care of her health.
대다 이 알렉스 페디오르 알렉스베 데 가르소레 콩로레 아니 고랑게 되와 최대한다 망보지 바 샤제 데 체도년에 꿀레 견제 패와 마세 아니 니마탕보 니게 디 진짜 디 고랑게 마티나체 니게 백업 나체 아니 그런 좀 총총 아니 디 마세 보루보루 되버려 아니 디 니마타버시 또루조려야 아니 고랑랑게 인생 투루도 삼노다야도 봐 원저시 잡지 괜찮아져야 지가소리 knowledge share 남바도 참아로 아니 얘기 당하란데 그냥 탭도 제지 마요래 신문에 지는 연구거리 탭도 지는 말래래 예 꽃파 니다는 연구도 봐 advantage인 거 봐.
So also, but and also so Elizabeth, but also and the workers here, but also Alex, who is at an advanced age now, and he's still puts tremendous energy and effort into coming to the teachings, coming to my teachings, and traveling with me and coming to my teachings. And I wasn't able to arrive for the first session, so Alex took over that session for me to lead that session, and acting as my backup, for which I'm very, very grateful. But also, spent these days teaching the students and passing on his deep thoughts and knowledge about the Dharma and sharing that with others. And actually, if you're really, really true, I should come to his sessions as well. But because I'm a little bit lazy, I didn't come. But perhaps I took advantage of him, but because we're very close.
Alex Shashabina, Takawangame, to Lomarede, near Setilia, Chiki, Java, Sab Shivajire, and Havado me, Kokomegi, Sungju Mambu, Koranshu, did not only any case Yuji, but Tangeli Shining Bokorangi, and Senje, Shul me, Korang in the shoe. I mean, Daniel Laman, now, Chubreme. I 주마니에디 당연히 신임부디 주버디 아니 라마 서버르베체 아니 아 전배 단달라마 마부지를 표중 라와동 아래 겐레 표비 이 겐게 dansa 나로래야 나체 단다 주버드도 스마체르시제 라와도 주버디 니주르 제르베체 니고 고고메게 야블라야 커도 나샤조게 당연히 신임부 주버레 어때这些人或완전 낭자스로 체들만도 신야个人间所有的每这个那么点的人是都是人然后낭자랑这些个참sam에退休主的
And so Alex here also obviously not just coming here in these days and traveling with me in this life, but also Alex has we have a connection through our past life, and he was a student of my predecessor in the past life, and so he has a tremendously strong samaya and relationship with me. And in fact, there was one very specific transmission of the essence, Lama Tsongkhapa's text called The Essence of Eloquence, which His Holiness, Alex had passed on the lineage of this teaching. Alex passed on the lineage of this teaching of this uncommon text of the essence of eloquence, and so Alex was given the go ahead to pass on this lineage by His Holiness, and so he passed this lineage on to me, and then I passed this text on to Lama Zopa and several of the teachers from the monasteries in the south, so they were able to pass on this uncommon lineage of essence of eloquence to many people. So there's also many reasons to be very grateful to Alex.
Torre. Alele. Michigolo 아니 X gang. 예상가 된다. 당연히 도시 냠도 대제 님배 지기 리버 탐브로지레 안디 인도잠베 호랑기 배 유르베 갑려야 엔지고 confidence 다 아니 지기 기이 토네 거리네 배 균에 장초되가 차디샤 현재상아 디 연된도 조디 호랑기 깔리 잡는 총셔 요시레 세상아 다가스 기유직 차바다 레라고요 말에 아나 하와도 지금 매직이 두른 것이 정말 신디자벨에 걸으시다도 와 이 시에고에 가려서는 캐나다리아 이장 데베가리아 노트 테이킹 디 렉처들은 얘도 노트 테이킹 채우고 상아 펠라 상아 펠라 가서고래 이두 차야를 고 인생 예발도 기프트 메모리 딕딱딱딱 주에게 메모리 믹스해 보고요. 띵알이 요만 세상아 저랑 저를 시다 명구요. 저랑 저 된다. 사면은 다른 쇼게 쇼비. 도대체 그냥 저 도대체 쇼야. 아니 게스트업도야. 도대체 쇼야.
So also to the two translators here, I thought it was the first time that I'd met Christoph, but actually Christoph informs me that it's actually the second time we've actually met. But this is the first time that we've really sort of stayed a long time together and worked together. That's the first time that we've really sort of worked together in this way, and it's wonderful to see him have such a skill and confidence in translating, and I can really see that these qualities come from really very hard work. It's not an easy thing to do. Taking notes is for such a long time is not an easy thing to do. And when I was in Canada, I had to learn note taking as part of my studies, and I failed in these taking notes properly about 5 times. So it's something being able to do this as a translator is a real gift. It's not, and I know that it's very difficult to take notes over a long time. So I thank both of the translators. Yeah.
네 매니저 아니 지난주 배 답장나를 찾아나니 대내배 정말로 답배 지난주 온단데 그난주 견라데 주도와 그런 chen 가서 때 괜찮을 괜찮기 배 지금 롭지나요 소와도 상황도 제수이란도 도시셰수시 지난주 레제베 용조다 쉬에 근데 다 도시슈 차면 정말로 도시
So, and also to everyone, the other people who are at this, to all of you who work at the center, also to Magali and to all of the cooks in the kitchen, and everyone, also to the monk Gelson here for his hard work, and to all of you. So, having said thank you, I say thank you very much. So also the lady who brought us the food every day, and also to Jimmy who drives the car. So also thank you very much to all of you.
매매에서는 라버지 싸대요래 타와도 산주 주는 데기 지금 동반이기 된들이 삼로당마다 아장장 아니 드니 칸에 렌드치네 지금 넘바 다가라에 아니 지금 오늘 전에 베스 오늘 동숨기 지금 바 각강체 디나로야 지금 가서래 수수 소남로부터 지금 강야라주나 동숨기 동춤부 지금 감도 강체 아니 드네 상계를 표를 할때 합에 다지 가서래 동반이도 지금 칸된샤보다 칸은 넘어점시 디펜 저기 거라 말이스 어디지 양양도 너나로 연구여변나시 당하는 저 손음 밤에 사요래 근데 손음 데 아니다 개와에 자와 딜iten치 당하는 저 되직점지 최대년 샤오마인바 아니 양도 딜이야 퇴섬 퇴바 삼바 공부 최고도 선배 엔 딜iten비 말한줄 땡킹기 라마 자와를 붙이기 준비 계진 땡땡이 지진 담바도 지금 저함에 버저 송도야 지다 안을 하바도 양 수수기 엔지기 딜이야 튼진 차단 잠바지 마쇼나 양고 최 자신보다 라마 자신은 제버정이 평면도 준비 고양지 지금 내래 아니 가리 내래 지 최대한 내래 야보시 용약에 몰람 교야지다 아니 하바도 양 지기 된지기 땡킹게 라마 소신 쇼베 라마들도 담지 꾸지 윤도 된배 원도스 뭐 말음 지나러 나스
And so, so the tremendous amount of effort that we've all made in these days to, come together here and to try to understand these topics and to understand these topics and to come together to understand the deeper meaning of these things. And so I feel there's like a sort of tremendous amount of sort of filling vases, overflowing with this merit, which we, which we should offer to which we should offer to the Buddhas as from merit of all of the tremendous things that we've come together to do, and we should make a prayer that that by this merit will we be able to not only not study these things just once here, but also to be able again and again to be able to hear and to study, to contemplate and meditate on these things. That we would have opportunities to listen to the great masters, such exemplified by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, being able to listen to many times, to be able to listen to their teachings again, and that and all concordant conditions and difficult conditions be cleared away, and that we have everyone has the health, the conditions, positive conditions such as health, to be able to do these things. So we should make prayers that all His Holiness and all the Lamas live long life. And I request you to make this prayer with all this merit that we've accumulated.
semla kanye ane lawado chigi jikazore shirunye mangu shibuju yore andezo tamji chigi da shirunye do yang chigi gyawa yago jine tuya chigdang a lawado chigi tante semla ro kanye shibu sunro debe da chigi pege 마 가발로서 대다 탐질이야 semla chigi tobar chigi ane molam chigi ane lawado 다 지금 알아서 단다 측지의 배 자침부 지유 자장가 소남디 탐지 세바이 공방도니 균인 라드데 가다 나다 치베 럽로데 세베 촐은도와 저버쇼 소남디 성에 가르 소남 사와 되게 아니 배 산주점에 나 송사교 들다디 제가 소남디 탐지 세바이서 같이 임베이나야 아니 얘기 걔가 나치를 준비하게 저기 아니 배 동네에다 탐지를 최백이 쳐도 아니 가서 수능대 탐지를 고마도 저 가다 나다 치료는 10회처럼 더 쳐가지고 더 탐지 10회기다 내가 도스타냐 너도 용해도 준비 딜레 최백 아니 저기고 쇼스제 뭐람 나 산지 좀 된디게 나를 잡나히 나란 쪽에 도시 나라나 도지체 아니야 shumā gyōgō jīwī mōlam shūgō.
And so we should also, also in the world at the moment, there are several sort of major wars going on. Many people are suffering tremendous mental difficulties, and of course, many have died. So for those that have died, we should really pray that with the merit that we've created here, to pray that they would take a good life. And wherever these wars and other difficulties are going on, we pray that beings have happiness, and we should make the prayer with the merit that we have created, that they may have this happiness. And there is a verse spoken by the Buddha himself where he says, by the merit that I've created here, may all of the beings be liberated from the ocean of samsara, which is characterized by such suffering as age and sickness. And so we should it's important for us to make these prayers in this whole sequence of prayers, and as I've mentioned in this way, to dedicate the merit that we've accumulated.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Rinpoche, thank you very much. We are so grateful for your coming. On behalf of all the participants, we really like to thank you for giving us such a deep teaching, and we would like to request you first to have a very long life and to come back very quickly as soon as possible. And thank you, Alex. Thank you very much for your coming, and to bring clarities and answering to our questions. Thank you very much. And thank you to the translators. And thank you to you, Kalden. You are so helpful, so discreet, and so helpful.
Ah.
And always smiling. And thank you very much. Thank you, Anne-Sophie. Anne-Sophie, she has been working so hard,
Thank
to
you.
get for the sound system. And thank you. Thank you to all the translators, and thank you to all the participants and your help. Many people have been working very hard to get these things happening, such a great event. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we are going to request mandala.
So the verse reads, by this beneficial activity may attain omniscience, and having vanquished the harmful enemies, may I liberate all beings from the ocean of becoming, which is tossed about by the waves of birth, old age, illness, and death. That was the prayer from the Buddha. It's also mentioned in Nagarjuna's text, 60 verses of reason.
After the long, when the short starts. When the short Om Vajra Bhumi Ha Ho Wanje Sege Sashi Om Vajra Reke Ha Ho Chi Shai Ko Yogi Ko Wei Usu Rege Ho Re Ro Sha Lo Pa Ko Lo Sam Bo Ye No Pa Lan Che Chang Rimpoche, Pa Sangye Che, Le Je Va, Ma Me Ga Ye Lo To, Ko Ro Rimpoche, No Go Rimpoche, Tse Mo Rimpoche, No Go Rimpoche, Lampo Rimpoche, Da Cho Rimpoche, Ma Pa Rimpoche, Tenshin Yin Gong Ba, Ye Ma Chen Wa Ma, Lu Ma Gan Ma, Ne Do Ma, Du Ge Ma, Na Je Ma, Ju Cha Ma, Ni Ma, Da Wa Rimpoche Du, Cho Le Nam Pa Ge Ren Yen Se, Wu Su La Da Mi Pe Je Gun So Zopa Ma Song Ma Me, Sang Xi Yi Dong Wu Wa Di Da Jing Shen Sa Wa Dong Yu Ba, Che Be Pe Le Nam Ma Tang La Nam Dan Ke Le Du Yang La Sa, Sin Sang De La Dan Du, Ki Le Den Sen Ne Ne De Je Chun Lama, Lo Zang Du Wang Do Je Chang, Chen Pe Se Go Tsenshap Rinpoche, Pe Chang Pe Zhen Na Ne De Fa Shen Pe Song She Sang Wo Ren Fa Shu Wei, Yong Du Xin Ka U Wa Yu, Du Zhi Du Wei Du Du Zhi Zu Zi, Xie Ne Yang Da So Wa Ma Yu Nang Ke Da Da Nian Pe San Shen Dan Xie La, Du Zhi Wa Chen Pe Gu Ni Jin Gi Ra Du Su, Sai Ji Gu Ye, Ju Ji Me Do, Ni
Pray for the long, care for the long life of this Holiness. The land is circled by snow mountains. You are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful generously tending gods, please remain until samsara ends. May this precious mind of bodhicitta, where it has not arisen, arise, and where it has arisen, not decline, but go from strength to strength. But this Merisada could may quickly attain the state of the Guru Buddha and be able to place all sentient beings without exception in that state. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. As a dedication that follows the Buddhas. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praise is the best, by all the gone beyond victorious ones of the 3 times in order to have good conduct. May all these virtuous merits that I have accumulated be of benefit to the teachings of the sentient beings, and in particular to the the teachings of the essence of the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa remain for a long time. So this is a long life prayer for Serkong Rinpoche.
Déité exceptionnelle, experte à faire tomber une grande pluie, des authentiques accomplissements de la longue vie sans mort, du mérite de la profonde
O charming Lady of Seven Eyes, Supreme Mother of the Triumphant, exceptional deity skilled in bringing a great rain to fall of the actual attainments of deathless long life, positive potential, and deep awareness, please grant here and now the utmost in fulfilling the aims of my prayers. By the force of your matchless dedicated heart to uphold the teachings, Tenzin, may you live a long life to further to further the essence of the deep and extensive guidelines that the able one taught Tubden, as a Lord-willing power of the ocean of reason and speech, Nawang, and as a lamp for the teachings of the excellent mind, Lozang. For the sake of leading to a state of pureness, enduring bliss, all wandering beings oppressed through bondage to their compulsions and disturbing minds, may you live a long life, fulfilling all infinite hopes through the extensive deeds of your stainless 3 enigmatic gates. May your dedicated heart once more reach out to strive in serving the triumphant one's teachings through your 3 pure rounds. I request you long to remain as a guiding light for wandering beings in accord with your will, in the land of disciples in every direction. By the power of the inspiration from the host of lamas, deities, and protectors, by the force of the truth of the non-fallacious dependent arising, by the strength of regard from the exceptional resolve of myself and others, may all the aims of my prayers be exactly and fully fulfilled.
Puis chacune des aspirations de mes prières être accomplie exactement et parfaitement.
Thank you.